Students, welcome to the online classes once more. Do you remember where we stopped last time? Yes, it was Toto who poked his head out of the bag and gave the ticket collector a wide grin. The next paragraph. The poor man was taken aback, but with great presence of mind and much of grandfather's annoyance, he said, "Sir, you have a dog with you. You will have to pay for it accordingly." Explanation. Aback here means to the earlier situation. Now, students, what was the earlier situation? The earlier situation was checking off the ticket. We know that Toto frightened the ticket collector. For a while, he stopped thinking about his collection. But he was a clever person. He used his presence of mind and started asking for extra money for Toto. It surprised grandfather. However, the ticket collector did not know that it was not a dog but a monkey. He thought that there was a dog inside the bag, and carrying a dog is sometimes a very common scene. Next paragraph. In vain did grandfather take Toto out of the bag. In vain did he try to prove that a monkey did not qualify as a dog or even as a quadruped. Toto was classified a dog by the ticket collector, and 3 rupees was the sum handed over as his fare. Explanation. In order to show that it was not a dog, grandfather took out Toto out of the bag and told the ticket collector that it did not qualify a dog or even as a quadruped. Students, quadruped is an animal with 4 legs. Grandfather put his argument that there should not be any fear for Toto because he did not have 4 legs, nor did he was a dog. But the ticket collector did not agree and charged 3 rupees for Toto. And there was no other way for grandfather. He handed over the fare to the ticket collector. The next paragraph. Then grandfather, just to get his own bag, took from his pocket out pet tortoise and said, "What must I pay for this, since you chose for all animals?" Explanation. To get one's own back means to take revenge. Now, students, why should the grandfather take revenge? Because he had already paid 3 rupees for Toto, which he did not want to. Out of anger, so he took out a tortoise from his pocket and asked the ticket collector about the fare for the tortoise. It wasn't a sincere question, but it was out of his anger. The next paragraph. The ticket collector looked closely at the tortoise, prodded it with his forefinger, gave grandfather a pleased and triumphant look, and said, "No, Charles, it's not a dog." Explanation. Prodded means to poke or to hit. So, students, here the ticket collector was a very clever person and was also a good actor. He took the tortoise in his hand and tried to examine it, and then, as if understood something, told grandfather that it did not choose anything and because it was not a dog. Now here we find the irony, what we call irony. Students, do you remember earlier grandfather said that Toto was not a dog. Then also he had to give Toto's fare. But here you see the ticket collector gives a very weak reason. We find that he told grandfather that because the tortoise was not a dog, it could not be charged anything. The character of the ticket collector also shows how people try different tactics to dupe others. Dupe means to make fool of. The next paragraph. When Toto was finally accepted by grandmother, he was given a comfortable home in the stable, where he had for a company the family of donkey Nana. On Toto's first night in the stable, grandfather paid him a visit to see if he was comfortable. To his surprise, he found Nana without apparent cause, pulling at her halter and trying to keep her head as far as possible from a bundle of hay. Explanation. Students, it is a different scene altogether now. With the passage of time, grandmother had finally accepted the staying of Toto at her home. Now, Toto was given a new place to live in. It was a stable. Students, do you know what a stable is? Stable is a house made for donkeys and horses. It was Nana, the donkey, with whom Toto had to live now. Grandfather inspected the stable on the first night. He was a bit surprised to see Nana, the donkey, pulling at her halter. Now, what is a halter? It is a strap tied around the neck of an animal, and Nana was trying to keep her head as far as possible from her foot, the bundle of hay. This was really a disturbing scene. Next paragraph. Grandfather gave Nana a slap across her haunches and she jerked back, dragging Toto with her. He had fastened on to her long ears with his sharp little teeth. Explanation. Now, students, it was clear why Nana behaved in that way. When grandfather patted across the haunches of Nana, students, Haunches means buttock, the thigh part of the body. Grandfather found that Toto had been biting the ears of Nana with his sharp teeth and clinging to him. The narrator here remarks that Toto and Nana could never be good friends afterwards. Next paragraph. A great treat for Toto during cold winter evenings was the large bowl of warm water given by grandmother for his bath. He would cunningly test the temperature with his hand, then gradually step into the bath. First one foot, then the other, as he had seen me doing, until he was into the water up to his neck. Once comfortable, he would take the soap in his hands of it and rub himself all over. When the water became cold, he would get out and run as quickly as he could to the kitchen fire in order to dry himself. If anyone laughed at him during this performance, Toto's feelings would be hurt and he would refuse to go on with his bath. One day, Toto nearly succeeded in boiling himself alive. Explanation. Students, in this paragraph, the narrator describes the bathing activities of Toto in the winter days. Grandmother of the narrator used to give Toto warm water for bathing. Toto was very cunning. He knew how to check the temperature of the warm water with his hands. Then he imitated the narrator's bathing style. At first, he would put one of his feet and then the other and his whole body up to his neck till he felt very comfortable. Then he used to take the soap and rub his whole body. If Toto found water cold, he would stop beating himself. He would get out of the bathtub and run into the kitchen in order to dry him up. Everybody in the family would laugh a lot at this action of Toto. But Toto felt hurt if somebody laughed at him, and then he would refuse to take his bath for that day. In the next paragraph, the narrator describes a terrible incident that happened with Toto one day. The next paragraph. A large kitchen kettle had been left on the fire to boil for tea, and Toto, finding himself with nothing better to do, decided to remove the lid, finding the water just warm enough for a bath. He got in, with his head sticking out from the open kettle. This was just fine for a while, until the water began to boil. Toto then raised himself a little, but finding it cold outside, sat down again. He continued hopping up and down for some time until grandmother arrived and hauled him, half boiled, out of the kettle. So, students, it was a terrible incident with Toto. One day in the kitchen, water was being boiled for tea, but Toto did not know that. He went into the kitchen and removed the lid of the kettle containing the water. He tried to fill the water and found that it was warm. So, to take a warm bath, he got into the kettle. After some time, he tried to come up and found that it was cold outside. So, once more, he got into the kettle and stuck inside this time. The water started boiling, and Toto tried hard to get out of it. It was grandmother who, for God's sake, arrived there and saved Toto from boiling and dying. So Toto was that much mischievous. The next paragraph. If there is a part of the brain especially devoted to mischief, that part was largely developed in Toto. He was always tearing things to pieces. Whenever one of my aunts came near him, he made every effort to get hold of her dress and tear a hole in it. Students, this is a paragraph where some of the mischievous activities of Toto are described. The narrator, in a very funny way, says that the part of Toto's brain where mischievous thoughts originated is a larger one in size. He used to tear off whatever he found into pieces. One day he tore up the dress of one of the aunts of the narrator who happened to come there. He made a big hole in her dress. When he tried to hold her dress with his fingers. Next paragraph. One day at lunchtime, a large dish of pulao stood in the center of the dining table. We entered the room to find Toto stuffing himself with rice. My grandmother screamed, and Toto threw a plate at her. One of my aunts rushed forward and received a glass of water in the face. When grandfather arrived, Toto picked up the dish of pulao and made his exit through a window. We found him in the branches of the jackfruit tree, the dish still in his arms. He remained there all afternoon, eating slowly through the rice, determined on finishing every grain. And then, in order to spit grandmother, who had screamed at him, he threw the dish down from the tree and chattered with delight when it broke into 100 pieces. Explanation. Students, in this paragraph, we find some of the terrible activities of Toto that show how mischievous he was. One day, at lunchtime, a plate of pillau was kept in the center of the dining table. Everybody was surprised to see that before anyone could take a grain of the pillau, Toto had been stuffing all sitting on the table. Grandmother of the writer screamed at Toto, and Toto threw a plate at her. And when grandfather arrived, he threw a glass of water onto his face and quickly ran out through the window to climb up the branches of the jackfruit tree nearby. But he had the dish with him still. He stayed the whole afternoon there and slowly and steadily ate all the grains of pillau. To show his anger to grandmother, he threw away the plate towards grandmother and screamed at her. The plate broke into pieces and he was very delighted at this and made sound of delight. That is, he chattered a lot. Students, now the concluding paragraph. Let me read it out to you. Obviously, Toto was not the sort of pet we could keep for long. Even grandfather realized that we were not well to do and could not afford the frequent loss of dishes, clothes, curtains, and wallpaper. So grandfather found the Tanga driver and sold Toto back to him for only 3 rupees. Students, the ending is not a very happy ending. Fed up by the mischievous activities of Toto, grandfather one day sold off Toto back to the Tonga driver from whom he had brought him before. Of course, the narrator gives some reasons for selling Toto back to the Tonga driver. He says that his family was not a well to do family. That means they were not so much rich, and the loss that Toto did to their dresses, clothes, curtains, and wallpapers could not be every time compensated. And so, grandfather sold Toto for only 3 rupees, bearing a loss of 2 rupees back to the Tonga driver. So here we come to the end of this beautiful story. Students, I hope you must have enjoyed this story. For today, let us stop here. Thank you so much.